It's mile 18. Your legs feel like concrete, your lungs are on fire, and you turn a corner just to see a hill that looks like it was put there just to mock you. But yet, instead of dread, you somehow feel alive. How do you explain that feeling to someone that's never felt that before? I've often used the word fun to describe things like that. But that doesn't even come close. And I've even used the term type 2 fun, but that doesn't really work either because no one really knows what that means. What I'm trying to say is that it's really hard to find the word or just a few words to describe that feeling of running everything from an ultramarathon to a 5K. In these situations where I'm talking to someone and trying to explain running and why I do it, instead of trying to explain the feeling of suffering and elation and transcendence that can come from running, I find myself using the word fun. When someone is eloquent, when someone is very good at speaking, it's because they've mastered the art of words. But even for the most eloquent among us, words, language can be limiting. Let me explain. So when I say the word table, the image that comes to my head is going to be very different than the image that came to your head when I said the word table. Now, if that's true for something as simple as the word table, imagine how different the concept and the conceptualization of more complex words like love and transcendence and courage and sadness, those words that can contain so much more in them. Imagine how different it is from person to person if the word table differs so much. This limitation of language becomes even more apparent when we look at other languages. For example, the Hopi Native American tribe, they don't have words that represent present, past, and future. The way that they conceptualize time and differentiate between it is whether something is real or potentially real, whether it is becoming or has already become. And I'm probably not doing a good enough job explaining that, but what it essentially boils down to is instead of seeing time in kind of like a timeline, how we see it, they see it more like a river, like it flows through like nature. At least that's how I understand it. And beyond that, with other Native American tribes, many of them have languages that give anima to what we conceive as inanimate objects. And when I say anima, I mean when they look at a tree or a rock or a mountain, their language addresses those things in their soul, in their essence, and in their being. On a more broad note, when I was learning Portuguese, I quickly came to realize that there was no replacement for the verb to wonder. There were things that you could do to kind of replace it, like saying, I ask myself, or I want to know, but those phrases don't capture the meaning behind the word wonder. And then on the flip side, when I came home from living in Brazil, I realized that there are words in Portuguese that are not available in English, like the Portuguese word saudade, which is kind of like a nostalgic longing for something or someone, but it's more than that. And that's what I'm trying to say, is that each language has its limitations. Each language has words and phrases that are incredibly useful, but yet other languages have ones that those lack. I hope that makes sense, because what I'm trying to say is that no matter what, no matter how many languages we all know, there will be things that we lack the words to be able to describe. And so take a second to imagine the difference that it would make if our language lost its obsession with age and time, or if our language addressed trees and rocks and mountains and rivers in their being and in their essence as if they had a soul. Or imagine that our language had a word to describe that feeling that you have on a run where you're coming up to a hill and you know it's going to be hard, yet your whole body rises to the occasion. Language does not give us the capacity to feel certain feelings or to experience certain things, but it does enhance those feelings and experiences. Like when I learned the word saudade in Portuguese, it's not that I didn't feel that feeling before, but what it did was it allowed me to label that feeling, and in labeling that feeling in a very precise way, it allowed me to be more aware when I was experiencing that feeling. And so I guess the whole reason why I'm talking about this is because I hope that we can be more aware of the limiting nature that language has, so that we can be more aware of the words that we use and also be more empathetic and curious about the feelings and experiences of other people. Because if we truly care about someone and the relationship we have with them, then I think it makes sense for us to ask questions so that we can really help them feel heard and understood. Whether that's around something as simple as a hobby like running, or something a little bit deeper like the feeling of grief that we feel after a loss. I just think it makes sense to have the curiosity and the empathy to explore that. Because behind words like fun or frustrating or sad, there is a depth of meaning that is ready to be discovered if we make the effort to ask the questions. And so if you're like me and you use the word fun to describe running and you know it just doesn't cut it, next time you're on a run, pay attention to that feeling and when you're getting it. Are you getting it when you're pushing your legs and your lungs beyond what you previously thought possible? Is it that feeling of elation when you finish the race or the run? Or is it that feeling you get when you get that second wind that allows you to push beyond? Or is it that feeling where your feet are pounding the pavement or the trail methodically and rhythmically that puts you into a state of bliss? Whatever it is, pay more attention to that feeling and be more aware of the words that you would use to describe it, because I think as we try to become more aware of the words that we're using and be more eloquent, that people will understand us better. I don't know, I hope this was interesting or helpful or thought-provoking at all. The limit of language is something that I think about a lot. So anyways, if that was interesting, stick around, I'll catch you in the next video.